From time to time, I try to come up with ideas that might improve our form of government, which is a democracy or a republic, or maybe, at this point, just a great big mess. Whatever we call it, it could definitely use some refinement, that's for sure. Some tweaking, a tune-up, but the tricky part is knowing which adjustment might make it better and which would only make it worse. Nevertheless, nothing ventured and all that, so here goes. My suggestion to help our beleaguered form of government is to establish in the White House the official position of court fool, or in the case of our form of government, the administration fool. You might recall that in a play of Shakespeare, the king had a fool by his side, and the fool came in handy, even though the king, being a king, tended not to listen to him. This was a royal jester, perhaps clad in the cap and bells. Historically, the court fool was often a eunuch. The thinking there was that the king could relax if the person closest to him had no balls, and thus would be less inclined to plot against him. I think what we need today, in the pressure keg of the White House, is a fool. It would help let off some steam and possibly allow for better decisions. Beans, I can hear you say, raising the voice of objection, the last thing we need in the White House is a fool. We've already got a fool. We elect him every 4 years. Okay, point taken. I know when you look over the register of our recent presidents that it's tempting to say it's a virtual roll call of fools. But we're tired, and we're discouraged, and in fact the reality is not that bad. Those people are not without their faults, and some of them, without question, were deeply flawed individuals, and they did some foolish things, but calling them fools is hyperbole. It's going overboard. You may not have agreed with their policies and legislative initiatives, but I don't think it's any reason to call them fools. A fool, a true fool, is head to toe, 24/7, committed to foolishness from birth. But Beans, I can hear you say, again, with the voice of objection, we don't need a fool in the White House. We've already got one. We elect him every 4 years. Oh, I see. You're talking about the vice president. Well, this argument is going to be much more difficult to refute. The main reason for having a vice president is the old heartbeat away deal, so that if anything happens to the president, meaning he dies, we are assured of an orderly transfer of power. In the meantime, however, we don't want anyone who could possibly contend with and overshadow the number one person at the top of the ticket. Therefore, the vice presidential candidate is almost always someone cut in the mold of that individual with the cap and bells and no nutsack. Consequently, no threat to the leader. In most cases, he is a craven, blithering idiot. Look at the current example. Okay, granted, our vice presidents may very well be a lineup of eunuchs, but I don't think they're fools. They are instead gelded political hacks. You may think I'm splitting hairs here, but I'm going to hold out on this distinction. A fool is a lot more, or less, than just a guy with no balls who can be counted on to toe the party line. The vice president may be a clown, but he's no fool. In tumultuous times, it takes a fool to see things clearly. Upside down starts making sense. And I think it would help if we had an actual, full-blown, certifiable fool in each administration. We've had our fill of the highly qualified experts, and you can see where that's gotten us. It's time to turn to a fool. It would be a cabinet-level position, and the fool would attend all of the meetings, but mostly he would be at the disposal, if you will, of the president, his left-hand man. Anyone who is being asked to lead a nation like this one, in a world as it is duly constituted today, needs to have a fool by their side. If only for the sake of perspective, to balance the terrible situations and dire events that threaten us every day. And, I'm just spitballing here, if we could somehow persuade every nation to install a fool right beside their leader, we might be able to avoid what seems to be, more and more certainly, an inevitable global catastrophe. We can't force them to do it, but we can lead the way, we can set an example. Let America be the first, then, to openly appoint a fool among its leaders. It may not work, but at this point, I think you'll agree that it wouldn't hurt to give it a try.